Gray's voice grew softer as he continued his story, making the young soldiers lean in closer. After the initial chaos at the facility, their security chief escaped into the surrounding forest. We could have retreated. We'd already lost more than half our unit. But pride and anger clouded our judgment. We decided to hunt him down. Commander Gray's outer membranes rippled with remembered tension. There were 5 of us left, still confident in our superior tracking abilities. We followed his blood trail through the dense vegetation. The human was badly wounded. We hit him at least 3 times during the facility breach. The forest was dark, with 3 moons casting shifting shadows through the canopy. Our enhanced vision gave us perfect clarity, and we could smell his blood in the air. It should have been an easy track and eliminate mission. The commander's scarred hands clenched. The first trap took out Walker, a simple cord across the path, primitive technology. But when Walker tripped it, sharpened stakes swung down from the trees, straight through his armor's weak points. The human had set it up while bleeding out, calculating exactly where we'd step. Medical Officer Stone's antennae twitched nervously. But how could he think so clearly with such severe injuries? That's what we couldn't understand. Gray continued. The blood trail showed he was losing fluids rapidly. By our medical knowledge, he should have been unconscious, if not dead. Instead, he was thinking, planning, using the forest against us. We moved more cautiously after that, but it didn't help. The human had scattered false blood trails. We split up to cover more ground. Another mistake. Officer Jones found a trail and radioed he was closing in. Those were his last words. The young soldiers sat in rapt attention as Gray described the scene. We found Jones's body 10 minutes later. The human had waited in a tree, dropping down on him from above. Hand-to-hand combat, something we thought humans would be too weak for. Jones's neck was broken, his armor pierced at the joints with a crude knife made from a broken piece of metal. 3 of us left now. The forest seemed alive with danger. Every shadow could hide death. The human was no longer prey. He had turned the hunt around. We were being stalked. Gray's compound eyes dimmed with the memory. Captain Miller died next. Another trap. This time a pit covered with vegetation. But not just a pit. The bottom was filled with sharp stakes, and Miller's impalement triggered an explosion. The human had somehow rigged one of our own plasma grenades that he'd taken from Jones. Just me and Lieutenant Green now. We could hear sounds in the forest, deliberately made sounds. The human was toying with us, drawing us deeper into his killing ground. Green snapped. He started firing randomly into the trees, screaming about demons and monsters. The commander's voice grew even quieter. The shot that killed Green came from behind us. Somehow, the human had circled around. One bullet, perfect placement at the base of Green's skull, right where our armor is thinnest. I spun around, but the human was already gone, milling back into the shadows. I was alone now. The elite unit that had started this hunt was reduced to a single survivor. And then I heard it, a sound that still haunts my sleep cycles. Human laughter echoing through the trees. The young soldiers unconsciously huddled closer together as Gray described the final moments of the hunt. The human's voice called out to me. His words were calm, controlled, showing no sign of the pain he must have been feeling. He said, "You wanted to learn about humans. Lesson's not over yet." Gray paused, his scarred hand again touching his synthetic limb. "Would you like to hear what happened when I finally faced him? How I survived when the others didn't?" The recreation chamber was silent, except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. The young aliens nodded, their earlier bravado completely forgotten, replaced by a growing understanding of why their commander treated human capabilities with such respect. "Very well," Gray said. "But remember, what comes next is why we have peace treaties now. Why we never ever want humans as enemies again." Commander Gray's antennae trembled slightly as he prepared to continue his story. The young soldiers noticed his outer membranes had taken on a paler shade, a sign of deep emotional stress in their species. "I did something then that none of our kind had ever done in combat," Gray said. "I tried to talk to him, to understand. I asked him how he could still fight with such severe wounds. His answer changed everything I thought I knew about humans. The commander's voice took on a clinical tone. He explained that humans evolved from pursuit predators. Their ancestors would chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. This gave them something unique, an ability to ignore their body's need to stop. But that wasn't all, Gray continued. The human told me about something called the fight or flight response. When humans face danger, their bodies undergo a complete transformation. Their blood vessels constrict to reduce bleeding. Their pain receptors shut down. Their muscles receive more oxygen. They become something else entirely. Medical Officer Stone's professional interest was clearly piqued. But, Commander, that kind of biological response should be impossible to maintain. The energy cost alone. Impossible. Gray clicked his mandibles in a harsh laugh. Look at me, young one. Look at my scars. Look at my synthetic limb. I learned that day that impossible means something very different to humans. The human explained that their bodies produce chemicals, adrenaline, endorphins, cortisol, that can push them far beyond their normal limitations. And the more desperate the situation, the stronger these chemicals become. First, Scout Smith's antennae drooped in confusion. But wouldn't that burn out their systems? Cause complete organ failure? Yes, Gray nodded, and they do it anyway. That's what makes them so terrifying. A human backed into a corner doesn't become weaker, they become stronger, more dangerous. Their bodies literally trade their future survival for present combat effectiveness. The commander's voice grew heavy with remembered awe and fear. He told me how human mothers have lifted vehicles weighing tons to save their young, how human soldiers have continued fighting with mortal wounds, their bodies literally being held together by nothing but sheer willpower and these chemicals. But the most frightening part, Gray's outer membranes flickered rapidly. They can't fully control this response. It's automatic, instinctive. A human doesn't choose to ignore pain or fight beyond their limits. Their body simply does it. It's encoded in their very DNA, a legacy of their evolution as persistence hunters. The young soldiers sat in stunned silence as their commander continued. That's why our initial attack went so wrong. We thought we were facing soft scientists. Instead, we faced creatures whose bodies automatically transform into combat machines when threatened. Every injury, every setback, just triggered more of these chemical changes, making them more dangerous. The human laughed when he told me this. He said, "Your kind evolved to be perfect soldiers. We evolved to never stop fighting, no matter what. Which do you think is more dangerous?" Engineer Rock's voice was barely a whisper. Is that why High Command enforces the peace treaties so strictly? Yes, Gray nodded solemnly, because we discovered that humans don't just fight until they win. They fight until they physically cannot fight anymore. And that point is far, far beyond what any rational species would consider possible. The commander's compound eyes swept across his audience. Would you like to hear what happened next? How this conversation ended in a confrontation that cost me my limb and nearly my life? The young soldiers nodded, their earlier mockery of human capabilities now completely forgotten. They understood now why their commander had remained silent during their jokes. He hadn't been amused. He had been remembering terrors they couldn't imagine. Very well, Gray said, his voice growing tight with tension. But remember what I'm about to tell you is why every combat manual now lists humans as extreme threat entities to be engaged only as an absolute last resort. Commander Gray's voice grew hoarse as he continued his tale. The recreation chamber's blue lighting seemed to dim, matching the gravity of his words. After our conversation in the forest, I thought I understood humans better. I was wrong. Understanding their biology didn't prepare me for what came next.